Hello, I'm Ashlee Craft, and I'm going to read my poem, A Lie Cannot Live in the Starless Midnight. Part 1. A lie cannot live in the starless midnight, which plagues humanity in the darkened crevice. Hate, 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 darkened alleyways at midnight, where soap operatic devices play it on sheets of cardboard caught by the wind and thrown under the tires of a passing vehicle, remote and confined and chained away, which hides within the folds of emotions which nobody can bear to look into the mirrors of the changing tides, within the brick and mortar subdivisions and the economic train wreck down the line and out the door just as the big boss screams you're fired, and a mistaken horn blows into the air just as the farmer's market crashes, which removes the common need for good, the clear pure depths of a baby's soul, and teaches them that it's a dog-eat-dog world, and they better be careful, not just anybody, and you can never really be happy because there's someone out there who's less fortunate than you. But in truth, unless you learn those things aren't true and you can be happy, you can't make anybody else feel the same way. Which takes our children, puts guns in their hands, and teaches them to kill, and that they must keep up with the narrow-minded escapades of falsetto wisdom and remote lessons hidden in the brainwashing stations on parole and in jail. Which steps into the platform and fires the winter shotgun. I read beautiful poetry in the subways just to hear the words echo without sunlight and create sunlight for themselves to be illuminated with. Do not be fooled into thinking that love is blind and that you are bound from loving your brothers and your sisters. Taxicabs slip between the buildings, beating wings of iron bars and steely teeth, waiting to grab you up and put you back in place when you're trying to get away from them. I stood with my hands in my pockets, praying for wisdom and holding onto a plastic ticket up against a brick wall, as steam from the buildings and the cars in the street mingled with the cool night air. I looked out expectantly into the city, jungle of people where everybody was wandering around aimless and unsure of their destinies. Moving from the brick wall, I stepped off the curb and quietly crossed the street. Thoughts crossed my mind. I realized I didn't know where I was going either. Fear crept in. Where was I going? Where was I to go? What was I to do? Why was I even standing here? What was the meaning of it all? A billboard selling some kind of masking paint lit sinister upon the horizon. The cars around me honked and buzzed, senses on full alert but not knowing anything. I stood confused amidst other chaos. The cool night air wrapped around me like a blanket, and I took a breath of fresh air, breathing. My soul breathed, but I still didn't know which direction to take, which street was safe, which street should I step onto. Breathing. Movies played out in silhouettes across the bricks and garnered through the mist on the horizon, dancing in the streets without name, without a game, without fame. I noticed in the dusk a singular soul stampeding across the street and flinging the shopping bags into the sewer, startling the sleeping nun sitting on the sidewalk holding her face in her hands, removing the bad habits she once had and letting her hair hang free. The dusk was surprising and sweet and seemingly profound and misunderstood in the misty crevices of the tortured night, and like sweet success startled when found under the smooth silken stone in the middle of the forest. The glare of the street lamp reflected from the tops of the buildings, illuminating the lovers, were like candles floating near the lost ship at sea in the ocean, standing alone but connected. A helpless mother clasped the hands of two children while several more were toted behind her, not having enough money to take the taxi. I noticed the children lagging behind in the street, and the mother called them back to return to their safe home. I watched as they entered their tiny apartment complex building blocks strewn in the front yard, and I smiled. They were home safe. The dark loomed like a monster in the streets, but I was not afraid. Peeking around the corner, I saw a man with one leg limping through the street, rhythmically stumbling over the boardwalk steps on the sidewalk, and a tear fell from his eye. The tear landed on the pavement and exploded outwards in the twilight like a star, shattering into the night. I saw 1,000 crystals shatter. Many people died, and just like that very moment, a chill of sorrow passed through me, and like lightning onto the sidewalk, jolting me awake. The sleeping bum 5 feet from me abruptly awoke as if struck by lightning passing from me and clearing away his sleep-laden visions, and he asked me if I could spare a penny. I saw pure humanity and a lost soul in front of me, pure, and I emptied my shopping bags into his lap, telling him to take it all. He needed more than me. His smile illuminated the city. My heart pounded in my throat and beat with the vibes of humanity as a cloud passed through the misty-eyed buildings, growing gray and stony towards the storming skyscrapers, tall, soul of the city. Peering through the darkness, I could not make my name out or see my face in the crowd of cowardly and desperate strangers I'd always dreamed of becoming a part of, until I saw who they really were, the lost souls, and I knew it wasn't the place for me. They stood huddled in the darkness in the middle of the business street, where cars passed at 1,000,000 miles per hour, drunken and not looking, and risked their lives to stand there, and tried to be a part of the designated group. I stood under the streetlight, illuminated around the edges and behind a thick but invisible barrier which protected me from the emotionless vehicles. Steely teeth and fear invoked in the boom, box, rattle. There was no place for me against the rough and tumble, beat up, beat down, dead, lonesome, empty streets. Lost souls filed out from the bars and the gambling places, while others, in their pain and moaning about the state of the wall blocking their path through the streets, stumbled and fell. People ground onto the bricks of the buildings, and as the sidewalks around them fall down into the sewers, and they do everything they can to reach away from the bottle, which threatened to slowly blind them, but still, they take what they can get. Those who steal from the pockets of the innocent passerby and then stand alone, crying over the troubles and hurt, pain, pain, pain. Piano wood smashed, crushed under the feeling of the passing truck whizzing through the tarry sandpits. Those who know nothing but the thievery and do nothing to stop the demolishment of most of their souls, but still a tiny speck, grain of sand in the middle of the ocean-fed depths remains and lives. But like a flower must be nurtured before it is too late. I could do nothing to help these lost souls if I too were one of them. A white dove wearing the sign of Pisces walked ahead of me, and somehow guiding me towards a golden storefront from where a street-front harmonica player played from an amplified cardboard box. Tune floated magically and somehow into my ears where it traveled the English channels and hit the core of my emotions like a ship gently reaching the land after an impossible journey, and my outer visions which haunted me in my dreams. I stepped into a coffee shop seeking something profound. It was midnight almost, and the streets were still so dark even after I stood in the spotlight, and I needed to be somewhere, but where should I go? I wandered through the night. The musician took the stage, and strumming his guitar recited the sacred poetry. My ears came alive, and time froze. I heard everything in his song: love, hope, poetry, music, life, death, forgiveness, joy, sorrow, desolation, loneliness, darkness, light, fraud, lies, irony, freedom, peace, and a spiritual experience to say the least. And everything seemed light. I saw an eternity which I'd been seeking for so long but never found, never grasped in my hands and held in my face so gently. Never did I feel more connected, and I'd found a friend. Somebody finally really understood me, the depths and caverns of my emotions, and I was in love at the deepest level, who I could relate to more than anybody I'd ever noticed, and I was sure I'd never find somebody more my twin. I listened with my soul, and the circle was completed as I drummed the rhythm on the underside of the ebony table before me. My eyes noticed it was daylight at my feet, knew where I had to go. Suddenly I knew where my destiny lay, and I walked from the coffee shop and picked up the sacred guitar, sitting in the golden case outside the door, which waiting for me all along. I just never saw it. Poetry came alive, 31st day of the 5th month. My eyes were awake, my mind was awake, my emotions were awake, a new world was awake. I was destined to discover myself as I watched my soul being born again. I strummed the guitar with the rhythm and beating of the heart in my chest, and suddenly everything was profound and possible. Raise me up, raise me up, raise me up, raise me up, raise me up. A Lie Cannot Live in the Starless Midnight, Part 2. Gypsy songs floated faintly through the misted and mistaken and misheard and misunderstood depths of the human soul, roaring and flying through the towering buildings. I waited and I watched love being born in the slums and rich neighborhoods and in the city streets where musicians sung sweet hymns to the golden gated bridges as the people passing by swallowed their pride and provided the quarter kin jugs to the people. Taxis never slept, and neither did I, so I took my newfound knowledge and pushed forwards within the realms of bells, chimes singing in the doorways. But soon the false success had gathered in that cafe so many months ago had soured, and I was on my own again, although the embers of profundity remained in my soul, waiting to be rekindled. I thought that I'd be happy in the new place I'd arrived at, but instead found myself clawing the pavement with my eyes wide open in an attempt to dig myself out of the corner so carefully drawn myself into, thinking that I was on the right path, but finding myself walking in the footsteps that had already been built by various soldiers in the dark and light, uncolored songs reflecting against the transparent bricks in solitary silence, and I didn't want to walk in those shoes, which just didn't fit. Limited to the corner, I scribbled forbidden lyrics along the window panes and tore at the steely curtains, but my hands could not manipulate the metal. Limited to the corner, I stared at the dead-end fence in front of my face and wondered why I'd even come down that street in the first place. At first I was so content to stand and admire the corner, and it seemed like the safest place on earth. My fate seemed set in stone, but soon I realized I never did want to be in that corner. I didn't know how to get out. All I wanted to do was to be myself and not live somebody else's life in a reflection of their dusty, shattered past. My creativity went down the dusty dumpsters and stirred the spoons of fate around my empty cup, but I felt as though I owed somebody something. I had been blindly led down the road upon the wind's direction of west to east, seemingly plausible directional movement, jumping into the boxcars as they pulled from the station. I tried to confine myself to the corner, believing fate was behind me every step of the way. The great words had been written for me and me alone, and it was time for me to open the box belonging to Pandora. But those were all falsities. I was stuck in the corner with the forbidden fence I didn't dare to cross. The years spent in that corner had built guided me onto the road I was about to receive, and prepared me for the soaring of my soul and the spreading of my wings. I had found the map to